Let's take a quick look at G1 Grimlock, released in 1985, as well as the G2 version of him that I have. Way back when I was first introduced to TikTok by my wife, one of the first videos I did was a very, very brief overview of the Dinobots because someone had commented and asked if I had them, and I do have them all, but I never went back and did individual reviews of the figures, and they very much deserve that, so here we go. If you had Grimlock growing up, every detail, every piece, the feel of him, the way he transforms, all of it might be burned into your memory as it is mine. And I always hurt my fingers trying to separate the tails on him and Sludge. Come on. This is the part that was always weird and wonky and made the toy look very strange, especially from the side view. And now, real quickly, we'll do the same to his counterpart here. It always bothered me how far back set his head was in robot mode, but it's all forgivable because, you know, it's Grimlock. He's such a beloved character that no matter what version of the toy we got of him, we were gonna love it. Me love Grimlock. Let's take a quick look at G1 and G2 Snarl. Snarl came out in '85 and is, of course, a Stegosaurus, which is one of those obligatory dinosaurs from the '80s you should know about. The G2 Snarl, I think, is the last G2 Dinobot they came out with. So there's Grimlock, who's blue, Slug, who's green, and Snarl, who's red. I don't think Swoop or Sludge got a G2 release. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. And if it's not obvious because he's in such good condition, the Snarl I'm using for this video is a knockoff, a decent one, but he is a knockoff. My vintage Snarl has half of his head broken off, which I think was a common bit to break off. The knockoffs are pretty presentable on the shelf, but this video is making me realize I do very much want to get a complete and presentable G1 Snarl as soon as I can. Something so satisfying about springing these legs into these little cutout alcoves. And now we'll double it. And I just broke his leg. How painfully ironic that the knockoff is sturdy and strong, and I just broke the vintage guy. So we'll just move him out of the way. Rest in peace. For me, I think Snarl may have the best looking robot mode of all the Dinobots. Looks like a little high school trophy. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to eBay to find a vintage G1 Snarl and a G2 Snarl. Let's take a look at some Slags, who first came out in 1985 and then later was renamed Slug. Alright, so G1 Slag or Slug, the former not being used anymore because I think it's a derogatory term. Anyway, I have a few of him because he was always my favorite Dinobot, simply because Triceratops has always been my favorite dinosaur, and will always be. So we're looking at the original G1, G2, and I do have a knockoff one of him, so might as well throw him in the mix. The only obvious differences being that the knockoff is a darker shade of gray, and the chrome is a bit more polished, I guess? But that just could be an age thing as well. All right, and let's transform his buddies here. The G2 version is very Christmassy. In robot mode, it's really, really difficult to tell the difference between the knockoff and the vintage. There is a little peg right there to fasten these two sections together in dinosaur mode, which is not on the other guys. That's one of the few things I just realized does stick out as a difference. And in general, the knockoff Dinobots that I've had all seem to be just a little too tight, and not in a good way. Not like because they're new, like because the pieces don't clear other pieces where they're supposed to. All that aside, I'm very, very happy to have 3 slags or slugs in my collection. Let's keep rolling through the Dinobots and take a look at G1 Sludge, released in 1985. Alright, so G1 Sludge is a very shiny Brontosaurus. This guy was a Brontosaurus back in the 80s. I think then they changed the name to Apatosaurus, but then even more recently I read that they're actually 2 different dinosaurs, so I don't know. If anybody's a paleontology fanatic out there and can clarify that, please do. And just like with my Snarl, my Sludge is a decent knockoff, but a knockoff nonetheless. I do have my vintage Sludge from when I was a kid, but it's basically falling apart. And since we're talking about knockoffs, I just want to clarify my opinion on them in a general sense. For me, if it's a reissue or a decent knockoff, then it's perfectly acceptable for me to have that as a placeholder on my shelf for display. Of course, with the understanding that I would eventually get a vintage one. But as a lot of collectors out there, I'm sure, have learned the hard way, telling what you're going to get in the mail, like what caliber of knockoff it is, can be a crapshoot. For example, if you were to search G1 Transformer reissues on Amazon, one of the first ones that comes up is Astro Train on Amazon. And this thing sucks. I found really good reissues on Amazon and really terrible ones, so just be warned, the Astro Train one on Amazon is horrendous. Sorry, that was quite the tangent I went off on. I really, really like Sludge's dinosaur mode, with the exception of his forearms that are folded underneath him. Oh, the hips. Probably the most nondescript and kind of boring of the Dinobots in robot mode. Because of the type of dinosaur he turns into, I always wished that Sludge's toy was way larger than the others. But regardless, I had this guy as a kid and absolutely loved him. Alright, let's round out the Dinobots by looking at one of the most fragile G1 Transformers ever. This is a quick look at G1 Swoop. I didn't know any kid back in the 80s that had Swoop that didn't have his beak broken off. If you had this toy as a kid and didn't manage to break it, my hat's off to you, because I don't know how you did that. Putting that fragility aside, he is a beautiful toy. This is a knockoff, a decent knockoff, just like my last couple Dinobot reviews. However, I do have a vintage one in the mail on its way to me, so I'll probably be throwing up a follow-up video to show comparisons. The only differences I can think of off the top of my head are that the feet on the vintage one are red. He does have 2 guns with firing missiles that attach under each wing, but on this particular one, this is really, really tight to attach, so I'm just going to leave them off. So Swoop is a Pteranodon with a lot of chrome, and his mouth does open. The reason why he's so fragile is that the connecting points for this lower part of the jaw and the plastic head of the Pteranodon are the points are so small that they are just begging to be cracked. does have wheels, I forgot to mention. And I think, I can't remember, but I think he comes with another landing gear wheel that fits in there. Everything in the torso is so tight. Oh, I lied. The other landing gear unfolds from inside his chest when you separate these two pieces. He's a little dainty compared to the other Dinobots, but that's to be expected. And now, since we've seen them all, let's get the gang together.